Let's go ahead and start. Consent agenda. The last month's minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or questions about the minutes? If not, can have a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
So looks like Andra moved, and I think Ray had his hand up before Brian. He's a little faster on the draw. So all in favor, raise your hand. Great. Motion approved unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Okay, let's see. The next meeting is going to be on Thursday, August 11th at our same time. Mary, do you have any staff updates for us? Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I've been working with the GIS manager, Jason Wagner, and he has come across some data. Looks like maybe inventory that you guys would be interested in for maybe the equipment or the things that you were talking about. He also was talking about the energy audit and an analysis of that. So we just started talking yesterday. So he's going to work on some of that information, and hopefully by your next meeting or whenever I get it, I'll send it to you whenever he has it. But he was real excited to be able to find that information. So I said, yeah, my group wants it. They want it. Give it to us.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think it might be older than newer, the equipment list, but at least we'll start with something. Can start with something.
Okay, great.
That's all I really have.
I know that when I spoke with Scott a month or so ago, he was talking about trying to create a dashboard. So I hope that that's what that is it's going to feed into a dashboard of city facilities that everybody can see, will be accessible to city staff, but I think also to the public in some sense, just like the water, the reservoir dashboard that we have.
Right.
That's great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Who
Thanks,
was that
Mary.
again, Mary?
That's Jason Wagner. He's the GIS manager. They do all the maps and all of that.
Okay.
Jason Wagner.
Great. And have you had any more success trying to dig out the last year's total gas consumption in Ashland?
When I asked finance for that, they gave me bills. So they gave me what we paid instead of consumption. And so I'm working on that too. I think I have to go through Sabrina because they're a little overtasked down there. So
okay.
I'll try her next.
I raised it with Stu again about a week or two ago, and he said, yeah, he used to have to cobble it together from several different sources. So it may be, he may have to do that again. That may be the easiest way to get it, because he said it's not easily discernible from the information that the city gets. And I don't know why that is, but.
Well, I'm going to go to Cindy Hanks because she's the one that sent me the bills, but she would be the one that could get it the fastest. So.
Okay. And again, we're not only asking for city consumption, we're asking for total gas consumption and total number of accounts in Ashland, so we can see whether it's gone up from the 2020 numbers or gone down.
Right.
Great. Great. Any other staff update?
No.
Okay. Council
Can I
update.
just clarify my understanding of that? So you're working on a natural gas inventory for the whole city of Ashland. That's what we're working on. Is that what you were referring to right there?
It's a little short of an inventory per se. I would think an inventory would have a whole lot more details. But what Stu had in his 2020 report and 2019 report, for that matter, is he had a graph and some numbers that said the total number of accounts, gas accounts, residential and commercial in Ashland, and the total consumption, residential, commercial, and then city. So we're just trying to see whether those numbers have gone up as they had previously or down.
Okay,
and
good.
Because that's been tracked since 2016, I think. And I'd like to be able to include it in our CPC update 2022 if we can, because to me, that's like one of the key numbers that tells us whether we're going in the right direction or the wrong direction.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thanks. And let's see. Council update. Tanya, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I think possibly. Did I report to this group that the city was entering into MOUs with both Stracker Solar and the community solar cooperative? Did we have that at the last one? I think we may have. I get a little sort of turned around between the different meetings and which ones have happened since when. That's been the main climate related conversation, but I haven't seen yet what we eventually put in. I think the deadline has passed now for that proposal for the Stracker solar piece. So I'll be looking into figuring out where we're at with those MOUs and what happened with that proposal. I think that's pretty much all that has been referenced directly to solar. I do want to point out to folks though that the council did approve at, I think it was the June 21st meeting. Yeah, the vision and value statement for the city of Ashland. I can drop it in the chat if you'd all like to see it. But I think it's helpful to see what we ended up putting in place in terms of our guiding document. This is very high level, but it's more than what we had before. And I think it has some good elements around climate and sustainability.
That would be great if you could put it in the chat. Yeah. Brian?
Tanya, do you know the location of where Jeff Sharp is thinking of the Strackers? I know the Ashland Solar Co-op, what they're looking for on the memorandum of understanding, I believe, is the buildings kind of that the city owns near City Hall in the lot behind City Hall, kind of at the intersection of the railroad tracks and Mountain.
Yeah, it's my understanding that
would be roofing projects.
Yeah, and so I don't know to what extent the solar co-op one was more, I think, of a general working together agreement, but the Stracker one was specifically to request funding from the state. And I believe that they're requesting Stracker funding for climate resilience around the Civic Center, which is the police department and the municipal court and that whole area, because that right now at least is serving as our emergency operations center. So that's what I believe they're putting forward at the moment. But it doesn't. The Stracker proposal to the state does not include rooftop solar, as far as I understand.
And the Ashland Solar Co-op is rooftop at this time.
Yeah, I believe so. And I'm still waiting to see kind of how those MOUs shake out and what ended up being in them. But council had directed staff to go forward with both of the MOUs and the proposal to the state.
Right. I think the deadline on that was middle of June at some point, so it should have gone in by now if it was going. Okay. Great. Anything else, Tanya?
No, that's it for me.
Okay. And are you going to put that in the chat, or is
I am going to. I just wanted to.
Okay. No.
We made a couple of word changes that are not in here, so we took out that lives within its means at the beginning, and I think we wordsmithed something in a little bit later down. But you'll get the gist. And I'll go ahead and drop that into the chat.
And I'm hoping that everybody can see the chat, not just panelists, because we have 2 attendees, including a student who has submitted an application, Keely Reiners, who's submitted an application to join the Climate Policy Commission. So this is her checking us out and making sure that this is a group that she wants to join. So I'm hoping she can also see the chat.
And that reminds me, Bob, I did put in the request to have the CPC and Conservation Climate Outreach Commissioners reappointed, as you saw from that message. But we're working on reorganizing the commissions, and so at this point, it will only come forward if the mayor decides to put forward any reappointments. And at this point, she's declining. So just want to let people know that that's where it is. We're and we're not putting commissioners back on or new commissioners on at the moment.
Right. Thanks, Tanya. And I have some information on that as well from a conversation I had with Joe and Sabrina. Caitlin?
Well, I just had a question related to that point, but if you have information to share, I can hold it.
Yeah. Let's see, maybe I'll answer the question or maybe make the question moot. So we'll see. So I'll go forward. Marnie and I reached out to Marnie Koopman, who's the chair, although also out of term, of the Conservation and Climate Outreach Commission. And I met with Joe Lassard and Sabrina Cota, the deputy city manager, today, about, and specifically to ask what the intention was and the shape of the proposal of consolidating the CPC and the CCOC. And Joe told us that he's putting the final touches on a draft resolution that would be standardizing all commissions as either standing advisory committees or ad hoc committees. Now, that's not new. We knew that. I guess what's new is that he intends to do that as a resolution rather than as an ordinance, because he thinks that that can be done more quickly. What he said is he's hoping that this whole process could be completed in August, so that commissions can continue to work and get membership back to full force. Changing the ordinances, he thought going that route would take probably 6 months, particularly since we've got some challenges in our legal shop. What he intends to do specifically with respect to the CPC and CCOC is to include other environmental issues as well. He talked a little bit about that because his observation was that we mostly seem to focus on climate here, but he said his experience in Texas is that water quality and permeable surfaces was an important issue, and he hadn't noticed anything like that here. He said that all commissions would have 9 members with staggered terms. So the consolidation of the 2 commissions would not be an increase in size for our commission. And plus, he said commissions could have a few ex officio members, drawing particularly, I think, from the experience of the Conservation Commission that has ex officio members from staff person from SOU, staff person from Ecology, et cetera. And in fact, and I guess students, these ex officio members could potentially stand in for absent voting members if we were needed to meet a quorum, but generally they wouldn't be voting members. What Joe intends to do is this is still a bit of a work in progress, but he hopes to circulate his draft tomorrow or soon. It was actually on the agenda for next week's meeting, but it's not going to be on next week's meeting. He intends to circulate his draft to department directors to try to get staff input on the proposal, and also for the department directors to share with commissioners in case commissioners want to comment. I pointed out that we're meeting today and that we wouldn't likely have another meeting before he intends to take this to city council. And he said, well, he wouldn't think that the commissions needed to present a commission perspective, but the commissioners could certainly send comments as individuals. So that's his point. He intends to put this on the case, hoping, I guess, he intends to put it on the council's agenda on August 16th. And I imagine that there'll be, a bit of a process, some discussion within council on the specifics. But that's what I've got so far. With that in mind, he does not intend, he and the mayor do not intend, I guess the mayor doesn't intend to appoint new members or even reappoint old members before that time. So I think we're going to continue the way we are. When we asked the question about would current members simply be shifted into the new committee, he said, well, the committees would be extinguished. The process would be the committees would be extinguished, and then current members would be encouraged to reapply, and they would be posted into staggered terms. So I don't know whether that includes recently termed out commissioners as well as current interim commissioners, or what it is, but it seems like that's a bit of a, he was answering very much in general terms for all of the commissions rather than just the CPC and CCOC. He was certainly not able to focus right on those two in any particular detail. So that's what I've got. Caitlin, does that answer any of your questions or raise more?
It does. I mean, my question came down to timing and thinking about how we're a little hobbled right now in terms of a quorum, and if this process with the city ends up taking longer than usual, just making sure perhaps that the mayor is aware of what we're operating under. But if it all goes through in August, my question's moot, I guess.
Right. Yeah. We did talk about the issue of quorum, and in fact, he invented on the spot the idea of having ex officio members stand in as voting members in the absence of a quorum. He said he's seen that happen in other places. Brian?
So two questions. So there's no guarantee that we would migrate to this new joint commission, and there would probably be, if everybody applied between the two climate commissions, some people probably would not be chosen, I would imagine.
So Marnie and I were thinking that through, and the CCOC has a number of vacancies and we have a number of vacancies. So and if you include the CCOC's ex officio members, current ex officio members, and they become ex officio members without a vote, they wouldn't be counted against the 9. It looks like we may be, the combined, we may have 1 or 2 people who might be able to fit into the next one. But even that's not entirely clear, because also on CCOC, you've got a student, and that could be a student seat. But yes, I think in general, your observation is correct, Brian, that there's no guarantee. But and Joe is not the one who appoints it anyway. It's the mayor who would make the appointment.
And my second question would be, the SEEP, the original SEEP, when it talked about moving forward with climate issues, there was a commitment to having a student member on it. And is the city manager or the deputy city manager aware of that and committed to that? And would they have, for instance, if the person wasn't 18, appoint a non-voting member?
Yeah, we talked about that. He didn't seem specifically aware of the student member, but we both pointed out that there are student members on the CPC and CCOC, and that there's currently a sitting student member on the CCOC. My guess, I don't know. I think what he's trying to do is work from the standards that he saw in the administrative the code somewhere in chapter 2. And my guess is that may be one of the things that the council or that staff or that we as commenters may be able to flag if he's not on the specifics. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think he was specifically aware of that, but also not opposed, and just we're going to need to be reminded when we see this actual text.
Bob, I have a question.
Yeah, Ray.
How do you and Marnie feel, or how do our two commissions feel about having less people to do the same amount of work, or maybe additional work if we take on other environmental issues? Is the 9 just because he wants to have the same number on every commission, or should it be different if we're combining?
Yeah, I asked that question too, because it does seem like he wants to have a standard number for ease of administration. I think those are questions that we'll have to ask when we get the specific proposal. It's kind of hard to have a conversation about a conversation rather than getting something where you get the details in front of you. So I think there'll be time to make those questions, and I think those are absolutely the kinds of issues that we should be looking at, because it was our sense, and this is what both Marnie and I said, is that there's a lot of work for a combined commission, especially if it's expanded in scope. I also said that there is a benefit to having a commission that's focused very specifically on overseeing implementation of the SEEP. But that this would not be that anymore. That it would have more than just overseeing implementation of the SEEP and its mandate. Mary?
Okay, so I just got the report from Jason. So I sent it to you, Bob, but I'm happy to send it to the commission as well. It's an energy scoping assessment report summary, citywide facilities.
Great. Yes, if you could send it to all of us, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do that.
Any other questions on this part of the conversation with Joe? Yeah, go ahead, Caitlin.
I guess it's not a question per se, but a comment, and I can provide this individually as well. I just have great concerns with this proposal, considering the point you just made about this commission's role to specifically assist the city in implementing the SEEP, and you know, that being a stated intent of the city. And this proposal to me seems like, on its face, like it would harm the ability of the city to implement that instead of facilitate speeding it up, as you know we've been trying to do. So I have serious concerns over this proposal.
Right.
If I can, Bob, we haven't seen anything yet.
No.
In terms of what it looks like, what the charters are for any of these commissions, and all that's still going to have to go through the council. So you know, I think it's useful, since it sounds like it's likely to come in front of council before this body meets again. I think, you know, we should watch for it, and if you have thoughts about it once we actually can see it, then to reach out to the council and share those thoughts.
Yep, exactly. And this, I think it's also tees up nicely the next thought that I wanted to raise with you all, is that after our meeting, Marnie suggested that we really need to put together a short overview of some of the main topics related to climate change that can be shared in a succinct and easily digestible form with new city, high-level city employees like the city manager, the deputy city manager, you know, new councilors, whatever. She says she has a lot of the material for this because she recently did a presentation on this. But you know, we need to make some tweaks and add some specific points that we might have to include in that. She asked if I'd like to work with her on that, and I told her I really don't have the bandwidth to be a co-author or anything on it, but I would do as much as I could. But I'd also ask if there's anybody here on this commission that would like to work with her on that. I think it's a really worthwhile thing to do, because it was quite clear from our short conversation that, you know, this is one of them, you know, a million different things that two new high-level city leaders are trying to come to terms with, and so that they needed something simpler to absorb it rather than trying to wade through a bunch of the documentation that already exists. Would anybody like to work with Marnie on that? And I can put you in contact. Not seeing a lot of volunteers.
Well, Bob, how long of a list are we thinking? This is like a one-page thing, or?
No, I think probably more than one. I think more than one page. I think she's got in mind, but I don't know. I didn't ask the question, but my imagination, my sense of it's going to be more than a page, probably be a few pages, but something that's not extensive, because that would defeat the purpose.
I assume it's like a high-level itemized kind of thing.
High level.
Okay, well, I can contact her and see what she has in mind.
Okay.
And where would this go?
Well, I don't know at this point. I mean, it was really in response to the sense that, you know, that would have been helpful to have been able to provide to the new city manager and the new deputy city manager as they started on the job. And we're going to have a new HR director. We're going to have a new finance director. We're going to, you know, a new city attorney. So
it's sort of an awareness document on the commission goals and what we want to achieve. Okay.
On the SEEP and on climate change. Why is climate change particularly important in this community? People that come from other communities don't necessarily get that. So I think that's what it is. Okay, that's all I've got on other announcements from commissioners. I haven't seen any representatives of other commissioners on the call. Brian?
In terms of just, is this where, like, when we report, you know, we all have certain duties?
Sure. Yeah, it can be, unless it's one of the topics that's lower down that we're.
I didn't see it on the agenda. So one of my duties is just to keep people informed of what's going on at the state level.
Yeah.
And I've been in communication with Pam Marsh. Jeff Golden did not respond to my inquiries. And so I think the next legislative session, I think, will be a long one. And what Pam and her staff are working on climate-wise and environmentally. Do you want me to just summarize that real quickly?
Sure, that'd be great.
One is building resilience and decarbonization. There's a 28-member task force working on this, and she is optimistic they will make some progress. But she says natural gas industry is lining up its allies to fight anything very hard. So the task force was created as an alternative to passing the REACH code. We could actually accomplish more than we would have with a REACH code that only addressed new buildings, but she said we'll see about that. So she thinks that this will be an effort front and center in the next session. Renewable energy and House Bill 2021, the 100% clean electricity bill. We included the study of the barriers and challenges to small renewable projects, as well as 50 million to invest in community-based resilience and renewable projects. My hope was that we could come back in 2023 to pursue lessons learned in both these efforts. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm telling all the advocates that are interested to get their ideas lined up. Citing, I expect discussions around how we will cite renewable projects and the conflict with other land use goals. We've pursued this issue a few times in recent past sessions without accomplishing anything, but they're going to try again. And then e-waste, this is tangential to climate work, but really important for our community. We need to modernize the e-waste recycling system to make sure it is adequate for all relevant projects. We nearly lost this region's recycling capacity for e-waste last year, but I negotiated with parties to get it stabilized for now. So that's the things that she and her staff are looking towards their kind of climate menu and environmental menu.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. I noticed in today's Oregon Capital Chronicle, there was some reporting about the money that was allocated, that was appropriated last year for heat pumps and indoor air quality and efficiency has not moved. There's apparently some supply chain issues in getting that money out. So that might be something to follow up on at some point or to watch, because that's something that I know that Representative Marsh worked closely on, and it was going through the Oregon Health Authority. And apparently they still have another year to use that money, but it's the fact that there's been some delays to date to get that money actually dispersed and procuring heat pumps is a little worrisome. And I don't know whether there's any group here in Ashland that's working on taking advantage of that. Okay. Any other reports from other commissioners? Let's move to, there's nothing from public forum. And let's just, Ray, do you want to take us through formal planning?
Sure. We'll have a little pilot up in the sky right now. July 19th, we still have the infrastructure master plan presentation by Scott. He only sent me one updated document so far, but the others I had already provided input on, and that was the sewer collection plan. And he does, he mentions climate change and taken into account for any capital improvements. He does have a multi-year capital improvement project associated with that. So that'll be a year-by-year tracking of the improvements we make there. And that's one of them. The other one's the TAP master plan and the stormwater and drain master plan. So that's supposed to all happen next Tuesday. I haven't seen the agenda documents yet for that, but that's coming up. And then we have on 8/1, so this will be before we meet again. Scott's going to present the initial plan on reduction of natural gas for city buildings. So I don't know if anybody on the commission has heard any update on where that's going. He's probably busy doing the infrastructure plan first. So probably have to reach out to him or try to get some idea of what he's going to present before the meeting would probably be a good idea. The only other thing here was I did update that, the wildfire safety plan has been completed, and so we want to move on to the electric 10-year study. We're hoping resources will open up for that. And then there was the pool. The APRC had a meeting, and Rick provided some input in terms of the heating options that were shown. I read their plan, but I didn't attend the meeting. So I don't know if you did, Rick, or I just read a note that you sent out coming back from some of the park commission on your feedback. Did you want to touch on that at all?
Well, I can just summarize very quickly. There is no money to actually build a pool. And so the energy ideas can be pursued somewhat methodically over some period of time. I think the energy report that was received was due to APRC commissioners requesting it from staff last September. And so it just sort of went into the process, and this is what popped out. I see a number of significant difficulties in what was received, and expressed that in my communication to APRC and in conversation with at least a couple of the commissioners.
Yeah, it seemed like they are committed to a non-methane approach, but there's still a lot of cost issues and money issues with just upgrading the pool and upgrading the heating system.
Well, there were a few commissioners that have been pushing towards not using a natural gas system again. It's not clear. I don't believe the commission that APRC has actually voted on that and reached any kind of commitment. And it seems unlikely that they're going to, since there's no money to actually build a new pool. So my hope would be that they would still spend the money on creating a fair analysis of the alternatives in advance of actually finding the money to build the pool.
And I think by you reaching out in the discussion that's going on, I think they're more aware the CPC would like to be involved in those solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of the points that I made back to a couple of the commissioners, is that, well, I'm happy to help. I think that a more formal relationship between CPC and APRC on this topic is more appropriate.
Okay. That's all I had, Bob.
Thanks, Ray. I just thinking back to when there was that public hearing, or not a public hearing, but a public review of the pool upgrade, and some of us went to it, and that's when we were certainly aware of the issue that the consultants were certainly pushing or recommending a gas alternative. And at that time, Rick, you were chair and reached out to Michael Black, and we expected that he was going to come and make a presentation to the CPC. He's never done that. And now I hear you, Rick, saying that maybe a formal relationship between the CPC and the commission, APRC, is that the right? Should we be? I guess I'm a little unclear. Maybe at that time we should have reached out to APRC rather than Michael Black, but I don't know, or both. Can we maybe have a little bit of a brainstorm on that? What is our best interlocutor on this?
That's a process issue that I think would be best taken up by the chair of the two bodies and the lead staff. I think speculating on it right now is probably not very productive or appropriate.
Okay, that's helpful. I could follow up with that. And I appreciate what you're saying too, is that, the fact that there is no funding doesn't mean that we shouldn't be methodical about looking at alternatives. Now we should take the time to look at alternatives in a real clear way. So now is the time when we could have a partnership on it.
Yeah, and I have one more comment in this context. I was not aware that I assume they had to put out an RFP for the engineering analysis that never came to me as chair. And so there's a process issue that I believe needs to be fixed. And I think the 4 people I was just suggesting ought to discuss that. And more broadly, I think if CPC is not going to be kept informed about appropriate RFPs that are coming out of the city, then somehow CPC needs to develop a process so that when RFPs are going out, there's a chance to comment on them. All right, the formal planning document is fine as far as it goes, and those are the long-term things. But where the rubber really hits the road is when contracts are let.
Yeah. Tanya, do you have a thought about that? Is that something that could be embedded in the new structure mandate? Is that because I don't think it's necessary, is explicitly there in the current mandate for the CPC?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the mandate for any of the commissions. You know, when we put forward something to staff and we ask them to go forward with it, if we don't designate that we want to see it before it goes out as an RFP, it just remains an entirely internal process and then it's released. So I don't know what that, I know it always goes through legal and the department that it's originating with. And potentially, I think the city manager may also have a review of it, or the deputy city manager, but we would have to ask Joe, is that a possible process? And if so, what does that look like? You know, what would the commission have to do? Because we put out quite a few RFPs and certainly not all commissions are interested in all of them. So we'd have to think about what those parameters might be on it. But, you know, I think it may be that this commission would like to look at all RFPs that go out.
Yeah, I would have to support that because energy and climate are pervasive throughout everything we do in our society. So the number that are not impacted by those topics is probably pretty small.
Okay.
I'm also wondering how something like a climate note might integrate with that.
That's right.
So, yeah.
That's really where it is, right? That's a resumption of the discussion of the climate. I did not raise that with Joe or Sabrina today. I did suggest, though, I did make the point in my conversation with them that from the outset of the Climate Policy Commission, the deputy city administrator attended all meetings until there was no longer a deputy city administrator. Now we have a deputy city administrator, and I was hoping that she would attend our meetings. In fact, I invited her to attend this meeting and she couldn't today. So hopefully that will resume. She's wearing 3 other hats at the same time at this point, so that didn't seem particularly feasible for her at this point. But she didn't discard that as a possibility in the future when she has just one job.
So I just want to I want to reiterate kind of what Ray said, and I mean we could as a commission look at every RFP that comes through, but it seems like to get the as Rick was saying, to get the understanding that looking at climate issues should be pervasive across the board, and it should be every decision that's made in the city should be, you know, like they do with financial implications. Everything should be looked at through a lens of how can this become more climate neutral, and just that should, and I'm not sure if maybe the climate note's the best way to do that, but to get that sort of approach or culture of in every department, in every decision that's made, that is there a climate issue that needs to be addressed within it, that if whatever we can do to make that happen, I think is important, because I don't know we'll be able to do everything.
Tanya?
Yeah, you know, one of the things we might think about is whether it's that this commission wants to see those RFPs, or if we want some sort of internal climate process for RFPs. if there's standard language that we would like included in pretty much all RFPs that, you know, conveys the city's commitment to reducing our energy use and adapting to climate change, so that proposers can know that that would be something that we would look on favorably from them. You know, a lot of these are very technical documents. We may not always have the expertise to look at them, and I'm not sure we would have the ability to turn them around all that quickly. So I mean, I guess there's a couple of different pathways we could take. You know, the mainstreaming of climate is one of the overarching elements of the SEEP, and this could be one particular way of sort of actualizing that goal, is to have council look at some sort of standard direction to staff in terms of developing RFPs and talking about climate in them.
I like that idea, Tanya.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Right. Well, I think let's take this up again as we a little later in the meeting where we talk about the climate note, carbon note, and because I think it is within that same scoping that exercise. Okay, let's see. That's it, Rick. Ray, nothing more? Okay. So the next topic is home energy, clean buildings and the home energy scores. And here I have a few updates to share. I think the most time sensitive and important one at this point is that we are scheduled now to make a presentation to the City Council on August 2nd on the collaboration. This is something that Tanya, I think, had raised with Joe, was discussing the home energy score program. And so he said, let's put it on the agenda and get a presentation. And then I got not panicked, but very pressing call from Mary. I think it was on July 1st, saying that we were scheduled on July 5th. And did I know about this? I said I'd heard Tanya had said that, you know, we were going to be on the agenda, but I didn't know it was going to be, you know, then. So could we possibly push it off? And I suggested pushing it off until either next week or the August 2nd. So we're on August 2nd. And then so that's good. I think it's a great opportunity. It is not an opportunity. It is not a presentation in order to ask for anything. We don't at this point need any specific authorizations from the City Council, but we do want the City Council to be, and the realtors want the City Council to express their general support for the program, that we're on the right track and that we should go forward, and it really gives staff the you know, some of the comfort that they can be putting energy into this, resources into some small amount of resources, and that this is the direction that the city wants to go. So we've drafted, I had a conversation, Tanya and I met with the realtors group yesterday and went through a very brief presentation of about 15 minutes and then Q&A. I'm going to share my screen so that we can see that, if that's okay. Let's see, it's that. Can everybody see that? Okay, so really, as it turns out, both Stu and I will be away. There's on vacation, but we're going to try to zoom in. So that our idea is to have a short intro by Stu or me, probably by me at this point, and then Roger Kanu, who I think has met with this commission a while ago, and he's been participating in every single one of our Rogue Valley Association of Realtor meetings. He's the program director for Home Energy Score program, for Oregon's Home Energy Score program. He'll give some of the background and really report on what's going on here in Oregon. Then Stu, I think, would be the next one. He would make the specific points about how this connects to our climate energy action plan and the CPC work, and the city's longstanding commitment to improving residential energy efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And then we'd really give the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors the responsibility of talking about our collaboration. That they would talk about they would mention the previous collaboration with the Wildfire Safety Commission. They would talk about the realtors' commitment to educating buyers and sellers about the importance of a home energy assessment, and really talk about it as an opportunity to save money and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that this would be a focus on Ashland, but it would go beyond Ashland itself, because the Association of Realtors covers both Jackson and Josephine County. And then I do a short, we talk about some of the specifics of the program. You can see in the outline, and then I just do a short wrap up. Probably I would do the short wrap up, maybe Stu, asking for the council's general endorsement, and an opportunity for questions. Again, we would not specifically not seek any specific authorization, but because no authorization is really required, but it does just give everybody a lot greater sense of being within the our lane, if the city council says that this is the right track. Any questions about that, or observations, comments? I also want to talk about the specific home energy score report in this meeting, which I included in the packet. But on this particular presentation, is there any thoughts, questions? Okay, stop sharing. Oh, Brian, there you go. I didn't see
on the I know you met before with the realtors. Is there any movement or talk about meeting with like the property management companies and having the rental community involved? I think of that as I'm right now putting my mom's house on the market for rental.
Yeah. I mean, this is an issue that we talked about when we first started the first outlines of the home energy score, whether it should be for only homeowners or renters as well. And currently this program is designed for homeowners. Okay. And that's the case in all of Oregon. Roger tells me that Oregon Department of Energy is working on renters home energy score program that they're hoping to roll out next year. So I think they're still developing that, and how that would be accompanied and rolled out to renters and to owners of rental properties. I think this is also connected in something that I would like to bring to this commission probably next month, because I'm not quite ready for it. And that is that as we are starting to get some home inspectors trained in the private market, there's one person who's just already started the course, and there's another person who's interested in getting recertified, who was once certified in the past. And then the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors has reached out to a whole group, another group of 29 home inspectors, so that we can get a cadre of home inspectors that are able to do this. It calls into question what is they would charge $125 or $150, whatever the market price is. But Ashland does this for free with its own staff. So I've had some initial conversations with Dan Cunningham, who's the person to do this, and he's not able to do for free all of the home energy scores that would be required if this program is successful to the extent that we want. So we would need some way to direct where he directs his attention. And a couple of thoughts that Stu and I tossed around include that he would direct his attention just to low income owners in Ashland, or charge a fee. There is a specific fee that is possible for this, or direct part of his program to reaching out, doing more outreach to renters, for example, trying to develop a rental program, energy assessment for renters as well. That none of that has really been discussed in detail with Dan. We've talked, just kind of in passing about it, but I think I would like to bring some thoughts about that, because I think that would be, the next step of issues that we need to deal with as we start getting more, an actual market for home energy inspectors. We don't want to be competing with that market. We want that market to thrive, because there's no way that we'll be able to handle all the energy assessments with city staff. Any thoughts about Any of that? Again, I'm not trying to bring it to this group for a full-blown discussion at this point, because I'd like to set it up more.
Right now, you need a home energy score to get some of the rebates from Ashley. So if Dan's not going to do that, would we still be able to use the one that the realtors have to get rebates? Because I'm thinking there are some people who aren't selling or buying at the time. They're just living in their house and want to upgrade their appliances. So who would they see to get that home energy score? Would they do the one we're working on, or would they go to Dan for living in Ashland?
Right. So Dan has said that he is also interested in becoming a home energy score assessor. And then he would unify to his score would be the same as the home energy score that is done elsewhere. And that would make it all one system and all in the same database. But you're right in the sense, well, that would have to change some of the rules of the city's incentives. Currently, the city's incentive requires Dan to go do an upfront assessment and then go back in after the installation of the equipment and certify that it's actually done properly. I think that's really the next step on this, and see whether that can be changed somewhat, whether we could substitute an actual home energy score by any provider for that, and whether there's maybe some other. He might still need to go back and look at the equipment to make sure it's installed. That's a much less time-intensive thing than actually doing the audit. But yes, you're raising absolutely the right points. Let's see.
I was just gonna say, yeah, charging for the service could be an impedance. But I don't know that, and some people could afford a fee for that and others couldn't. So I don't know. I think if there'd be some way to make that more available to more people. And the thing about doing an energy score for a renter, I'm not sure if a renter would be one who would request that. I mean, I guess. Okay, so the only thing I can think of is a renter would want to know that before moving into a place. But with the rental market being so tight now, people are happy to get whatever they can get. So I'm not so sure that a home energy score for a renter would be really useful. It might be useful in a more competitive rental market, but I mean, in terms of wanting to get renters, for the property managers to do that. But there might have to be some other sort of incentive or some other means of making those home energy scores more pervasive. It seems like we really would want to have as many homes in our city understanding what their score is, where they lie, and how they can improve that. I mean, that's the end goal, right? So I don't know, just looking at that, it's a little complicated, but it's something we need to move towards.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's why I'm very pleased that the Department of Energy is going to put some real resources into trying to figure it out, because it's a problem. Because what we also don't want is to, and this is the split incentive problem that other places have found, is that if landlords upgrade the equipment, they charge more, and so we want to try to avoid that, and we don't. There is some experience in other places where they seem to have kept that from happening, including, I believe, in Eugene, where they're installing upgraded equipment in rentals. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to bring to you is the actual home energy score report, the example, and I think I've got it here. So let me share my screen. This one. Can you see it? Okay, so the state has developed that. This is the template, the standard template. And when we talked with Roger Kanu here and Anthony Roy from Earth Advantage, they told us that this is the report, and this is the standard report, and we really can't change very much. What we can change is this box here, this one here, and I think I'll try to see if that Can you see the text that's in the box?
Mhm.
And a lot of that text is very general, and I'm not sure that we necessarily want to tailor much of that. It talks, very general terms about importance. The other place, though, that is possible to change some of the text is this tackle energy waste today, where it talks about enjoy the rewards of a comfortable, energy efficient home that saves you money. Here, and done in the form of a checkoff. We could here change this, and one of the things that the realtors suggested is that we would not want to say check with your local utility for a list of contractors in your area, because our local utility doesn't maintain a list of contractors. Instead, we were thinking of something like your local realtor may be able to suggest local contractors in your area. But this is also an opportunity where we can say something else if we want. We could put information about the city's website, about incentives, or about programs for making the upgrades. Yeah, I think those are things. Because did people have a chance to look at this home energy report before the meeting and have some thoughts about how we might want to change it, if we want to change it, or just go with this? This is the report that they're using in Portland and Milwaukee and in Hillsborough and elsewhere where there are voluntary programs in Eugene and Bend and Corvallis. Caitlin? I think you're muted, or I can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing this example report. I still would like to see the report include a warning on the health risk of any existing indoor natural gas infrastructure. Because it's a human health risk. And I don't think the home energy score addresses that, but I think if someone, that would be an important thing to know as a homeowner when you're thinking about potentially making that energy improvement, is to understand the risk to human health of not making that change in terms of emissions from gas stoves. So it sure would be nice if we could have some sort of focus on air quality, both from that regard, and then secondarily in terms of smoke, because we know that's such a challenge in our region. Is, if there's any sort of tie-in to say, hey, making some of these improvements is going to improve your home air quality during smoke season as well. It just might be something nice to note for folks, like if people are on the fence about whether to make the improvements or not. So those are two thoughts I had.
Caitlin, I think I remember you had mentioned that about the indoor air quality when we talked about this back in January. I wonder if now that we've got this specific example and we're really at the point of really making any tweaks to this that we want, would you be able to draft something very short that could be in one of these, I think another bullet down here in the box, because it seems like that's the best place to put it, because it's not really about, the specific actions, it's more about information. So it couldn't be very long, because I think we want to keep all of this information in there, unless we think that we want to keep some of it. I think we have to keep all that information. It seems very useful information to me, but I guess we could decide. But if we could have maybe a line, or possibly 2 lines could fit in there with 1 bullet. Do you think you could do that for the next meeting? And we could, or maybe you could just, it wouldn't even necessarily be for the next meeting, because I'd like to get it to the, it wouldn't go to the report before the city council meeting, but we're hoping to launch this more officially in August. So it'd be nice to have it by the next meeting so we could actually discuss it.
Yeah, that would be my pleasure. I'll coordinate with you on that, Bob, and send something over.
That's
just
great.
because I think a lot of folks aren't necessarily aware of that point, and it ties in directly to changes that they might be making as a result of this report.
That's great. Thanks a lot. Any other observations about the home energy score?
So you did say that you're going to be changing this one that says select a contractor for 2 comparisons and obtain bids. Check with your, we're going to take, that's going to be taken out. The check with your local utility for a list of, is that
Yes.
okay?
The specific piece about check with your local utility. Stu was in the meeting and said,
It's
yeah,
going to
we
take that out.
we
So
don't take just the check with your local utility. It would still be select a contractor or 2 for comparison and obtain bids. And then
okay,
we might, I think the suggestion was to add something that realtors could be a source of information for local contractors.
okay, good. Yeah, because people are going to want to know where they can, who they can go to get the work done.
Stop sharing.
Gonna make a comment on that?
Yes, please, Rick.
Can there be a reference to a website, for example, the incentives that the city provides, or a website that helps people electrify their homes?
Yes, I meant to say that we were talked about including references to the City of Ashland website, specifically for incentives, the climate page. If other websites that are not, so I don't know about other websites other than we also talked about the Virginia Valley Association of Realtors, reference to their website as well, and they might have other information, but we didn't talk about third-party unaffiliated websites where there might be some resources. Do you have something specific in mind?
Oh, well, for within Ashland, there's obviously the Electrify Ashland Now website, which has a lot of information about how to electrify things. But outside of Ashland, there are more generic websites. I can't cite them right off the top of my head that would help people. This is kind of following up on what Caitlin was saying. Improving indoor air quality, and a lot of that can be through electrification.
I think that's right. So the challenge that we faced as well is this is a single report, and it would be the one that would be used for the whole area. It wouldn't just be Ashland. So it has to also, I mean, I think what we talked about having is saying for in Ashland, contact this website for incentives, and then something else, another reference.
Well, as far as I know, there's only 2 utilities that cover the entire area that you're talking about. And so the Energy Trust of Oregon would apply everywhere outside of Ashland. And so having an Ashland specific one, I don't think is outside the realm of reason.
Okay. Right. Oh, right. I suppose we could actually have a reference to Energy Trust of Oregon, right? So Ashland
Right.
Energy Trust of Oregon. Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of other websites like Electro Ashland Now, I'll have to explore that. Yeah, or whether that gets linked through the city's website. That may be a place to put it on the comment pages on the city's website. Any other thoughts on that, or let's see. Okay, how are we doing on? Probably way behind on time now. Andre, I put your climate journey in there because I liked it. I don't know if you want to say a few words about it. Wasn't my intention that we'd have a long conversation of it. I thought it was really nicely done and the kind of.
Well, it was published in the Mail Tribune.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody saw that, and I received some positive comments from friends of mine about it. I suppose I don't think the Mail Tribune has any proprietary hold on it, and I could publish it someplace else. I was thinking about sending it like to the sneak preview or someplace like that in Ashland if I don't know if you think it might be worth it. Yeah, so
yeah,
and I put it on the Ashland Climate Collaborative website as well. And I think Rick said it's not, we don't have a ability to put it on the Ashland website, but the city of Ashland. So should I go ahead and send it to the sneak preview and see if they want to publish it somewhere? or sometime.
Does a sneak preview do you have to pay for that?
I don't think so. You can send in like guest editorial, guest article, stuff like that, and they choose to print it or not. Ashland News. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
The sneak preview has an ongoing climate corner that's kind of managed by the CCOC. So I don't know if they would do another one, but maybe they would.
Well, maybe they'd use this for it if they, sometimes if you need content, you need content, you know, and sometimes you don't need content. And, you know, I could run it by them, and there's no, you know, there's never any guarantee that someone will publish it, but I could send it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that at least when I was leaving and transitioning to this one, they were very interested in the other commissions contributing on climate or environmental conservation issues.
Okay.
And Andre, do you see the comments from Lori?
Yeah, let's see. It would
a few minor change modifications.
Andre would on the copyright. It would be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. That makes sense. Tweak it a little bit.
And Lori is the curator for Climate Spotlight in Ashland.news. So
okay,
could help with that. There she is.
Okay.
It's always good to have interested public participating in these meetings. Okay, so work plan, the CPC work plan.
Hey, Bob.
Yes, Ray.
Sorry, I got disconnected when you were talking about your home energy score.
Oh, no.
And Andrew, I did read your thing, and it's great. The only comment maybe somebody made was that you said there's a couple of sections we can change, and I know my concern was in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, because the example you gave, they had a natural gas hot water heater and furnace, and so the upgrade was getting a more efficient one, but there wasn't any recommendation to electrify. So I don't know if that's something we'll be able to push because we're choosing a fuel, but it didn't show much reduction in getting a higher efficiency hot water heater. Whereas if you went electric, there could be more to be gained. So maybe is it possible that we don't necessarily push it, but at least list the electric options available?
Yeah, like the heat pump.
Let me raise that with I think that's a good statewide issue because it's not just us. Everybody's facing the same thing.
Yeah. So instead of saying, well, get a more efficient hot water natural gas heater, but you may also want to consider an electric heat pump. So, which would also reduce your emissions this much. So it's sort of like give them the data.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had.
That's great. Thanks, Ray. I'll take that up with the team. This is not the realtors with the Oregon team, the Roger Kanu and I suppose maybe Anthony Roy, the Earth Advantage people. Okay, so the next item on the next topic is our CPC work plan. We talked about it last time. We went through it, and then I was tasked along with Rick and Ray to come up with a more advanced version. So I want to go through that. I did send it out, and I highlighted in yellow some topics that I think would be particularly useful to get some feedback on. Let me see is it useful? Would people rather me put it up on a shared screen, or would you like to just look at it yourself and on your own screen without me sharing it? What's preferable?
I like the screen share personally.
Okay, let me just screen share.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, let's see. Well, I had it here. There it is. Okay, screen share. Here we go. Can you all see it? Yeah, so a lot of this text is really the same as before, but I did start to drop in a bit more in the introduction that talks about we were not able to comment on overall progress, and drafted some text along those lines. And then this is where I'd really like to drop in the information we get from Mary or Mary and Stu about natural gas consumption and connections, because that was one of the principal points that Stu made in last year's meeting, and of course he didn't do it this year because he didn't give a report. So that's what I was thinking for the beginning. Any thoughts about other things that I should particularly highlight in terms of the framing of where we are? And I cannot see everybody, so if you want to say something, you should shout or raise your hand, and you'll pop up to raise your digital hand, and you'll pop up to the beginning. Then, okay, so here we have also in yellow, we've been talking about the path off fossil gas. I just wanted to talk with this group about whether we would want to continue using the term fossil gas. We used the term fossil gas last time, and a number of us had been discussing this in the community. It's often confusing for people. People think fossil gas may refer to gasoline, which they know is fossil gas. What Electrify Ashland now has chosen to use is natural gas. You put in the quotes around natural, and then the first usage, put in parentheses methane, end parentheses, and then continue just to use natural gas with quotes around it every time. There's lots of different ways to approach it, but that's I guess what Rick and I suggested. I don't think Ray weighed in on that point. I don't know if
I'm okay with that too, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Other thoughts on that? Do people think there's not a perfect solution?
It makes it more clear.
Makes it more clear. I mean, the problem is that the gas industry has appropriated the word natural, so now everybody thinks of it like that. Okay, stop me if you. I'm going to just focus on the yellow text unless somebody stops me in advance of that. I think Ray provided a lot of this text from formal planning and what we're doing. I tried that the format is a little bit of an introduction, and then a little bit about what we did and what's on our agenda for 2022, 2023. Here we do have the carbon note. Let's actually look at that. So I'll read it out. Well, people can read it themselves, I suppose. Remains on the commission's agenda for 2022, 2023. Okay. And I think in the look ahead, we've got that assigned. I believe it's to Rick and Andra. Is that who it's assigned to?
I think it's myself and Rick.
Okay, thanks, Ray and Rick. Okay.
And is there some way to add into that paragraph some sort of, like, I don't know, urgency or the critical nature of having something like that in the system?
Yeah, I think so. Andra, would you send me some text? Great.
Why not?
Yep, terrific. Then we go down to clean buildings. So I put in yellow in the home energy scores and Carvallis because I had participated in a state level working group meeting of all the cities that are working on home energy scores. And Carvallis was announced very excitedly that their city council had approved a mandatory home energy score program, the first reading of an ordinance on that, on a split vote, 5-4 in their council. And then I heard from the realtors yesterday that Corval, in between the first vote and the second vote, they reversed course, and they're going to stick with a voluntary program, and they're wanting to connect with Ashland about how that could be developed. So yeah. So anyway, we'll see how that.
Kudos for Ashland.
Yeah. I have mixed views about it, I guess. I think a program like we're doing makes a lot of sense in a place that's far away from a metropolitan area. Maybe Corvallis is more like Ashland than it is like the metropolitan area in Portland, but maybe it's not. I just don't know. If they're making it voluntary for the right reasons, I'm happy about that. If they're making it voluntary as a step back, it's, you know, unfortunate. So these are the next set of yellow text I've got are 3 things that Chris Brown was working on. And I reached out to Chris, and he basically said that there were initial conversations on each one of them, and shared with me some of the notes on that. But it was really that work was done quite some time ago, and there's been no follow-up, I think, in the rest of the since then. So I guess my question is who would like to take this, if we want to take this up, if we want to include this in the 2022-2023 work program, somebody would need to take responsibility for it, because at this point we don't have anybody that is taking responsibility for it. Now, you know, we know that the commissions are going to be possibly going to be consolidated at some point, not too distant future. So things may get thrown up in the air, but even still, I think we should continue to proceed, you know, on the path we're on. This is our work plan, and if we can't foresee what's going to happen. So I would suggest somebody, I would just suggest that we decide today whether we're going to keep this in the work program or not, and if we want to keep it in the work program, who wants to take responsibility for it.
You're referring to keep it in the work program, the home energy score program?
No, I'm talking about the work program for the CPC. This whole document is about the CPC's work program for 2022-2023. And under clean buildings, we have home energy score. Under the initiative for clean buildings, we have, let's see, clean buildings. I'm sorry, I went too fast. Then we have assistance for low-income residents with the USDA Rural Savings Program. Then we had home energy score, which we've talked about. Housing capacity analysis, which I meant to report on today, and I still need to tell you about that because I participated in a meeting on Monday. But I think that's complete here. Building reach codes, I think we've talked about, and we keep that in. That's what Brian talked about today. And then there's these 3 items that are in yellow that we don't have anybody that's working on that. Solar access code with the Planning Commission, the electric vehicle charging to help ensure that there's an approach for EV ready wiring in new residential construction, in a whole host of settings, critically important if we're going to be, you know, increasing the number of EVs. And then a density bonus, particularly in some of the to be redeveloped parcels.
So Bob, can you just explicitly tell me what your ask is? Is it somebody to take on the clean buildings part of this, or the whole climate, this whole work plan?
Only, so within the clean buildings, only the item that refers to solar access code that's on the screen. So that there has been some initial conversations with the Planning Commission and with the Community Development Department, but there's nothing else has happened on that. So if we think that changing the city's solar access code should be within our work program this year, somebody needs to work on it.
And that would be working with city staff and going to the Planning Commission to basically try to change that, or?
I think that's right, essentially, and that's part of the problem is that there's, you know, Stu, we don't have a climate energy analyst to help with that. There would be working with people in the planning department. Rick, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Do you have a better sense of, or not really?
Not really. I don't have any unique insight into that.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, is it realistic? I just want to add, I'm being a little devil's advocate here. Is it realistic for somebody to volunteer and do this? Does city staff have bandwidth for you to call the city and say, I need to talk to somebody and discuss solar access codes? Is that a non-starter?
I think it's a difficult lift, actually. But I don't want to be discouraging, but I think it is a difficult lift.
Well, I mean, working on with the Ashland Solar Co-op, so that, you know, I'd be interested in doing that, but I agree with you. I'm just not sure that there's the resources to meet with somebody and then formulate a cognizant plan to take to the planning commission.
Right.
It seems like having someone with expertise in like who does analysis of, like when I got the solar panels on my house, Truth South Solar came and did just check to see if it was, you know, what the feasibility was. And it seems like having a company like that, or someone like maybe the solar co-op, look at the current code and then see what could be changed to make solar more more feasible for people might be helpful. But otherwise, I think Ryan's kind of right. If there isn't the staff there, if we can't elicit other participants or other people in on the looking at that, it seems like kind of a heavy lift. Yeah, I agree.
So a lot of this really wasn't with the installers, it's really with the planners, and maybe introducing into building codes, you know, limits on penetrations or directions or penetration setbacks, facing the way the roof should be facing so that it gets maximum insulation. It's a heavy duty planning kind of task, and Chris Brown, I think, was up for it. He's an architect and he understands that world, and had an initial discussion, but didn't get very far.
Yeah, and there again, if there was some way to, you know, permeate the sort of the climate urgency throughout everything, so that when anyone in the planning department is, you know, looking at their codes or revising or whatever, they go, okay, we need to keep that in mind. If there's some way to permeate that through everything, that would make that more feasible.
So what I'm hearing is that we don't have a lot of installed capacity to really carry this forward, and we probably should drop it from our work program at this point. Is that?
I think it's an important thing. It's just like, I'm just trying to think of myself in doing this.
Right.
And it's like when you talk about Chris Brown, it's kind of like he can kind of go to the planning commission,
right,
who a lot of them are contractors or builders, and they have a certain language they can speak and understand each other. And I don't mind meeting and talking to somebody, but I don't even know the right questions to ask, quite honestly.
I think that's right. I think we don't really have the capacity, the installed knowledge right now in the commission.
Bob, I think if we had somebody like Stu, and I don't know if we ever will get somebody, he or she, then it would be a lot easier to see if this is realistic. I think for now, I think we all feel it's important, but it's up in the air how much we can support it. It depends on staffing.
So maybe that's what I should say. And instead of initial conversations we're conducting will require follow-up in 2023, maybe there should be another sentence that says we're going to deprioritize.
It depends on commission realignment and city staffing.
Right. Does that seem right to everybody?
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay. Okay, let's look at the second one, electric vehicle charging.
Well, I was thinking of all three of these when.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that the consensus that we would say for all three of these, that it depends on city staffing and commission membership?
Yeah, I think it's important that they know we're willing, but we need to have the staff to be able to make that happen, because those are all three.
Okay.
These are all three really important concerns. Not that anything in there isn't important.
Yeah. The other side of the coin is that if it takes them a long time to get a climate person, and you know, I doubt very much this commission realignment is going to be done by August. seems like the can keeps getting kicked down. I mean, maybe it makes sense to just have, at the planning commission meetings, be the, the pebble in the shoe to the planning commissioners. We need to have, you guys need to have solar access coding, as you plan for new communities in town, and they all need to have electric vehicle charging. I mean, I'm just trying to think, it's so frustrating that, we're so hobbled right now by not having the staff person that the seat, said we need to have, and not even knowing the status of our commission. Right. But the planet keeps getting warmer and we need to do our work.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that, yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think that if we do get the staffing, and if we get a member of the commission that actually has the background to be able to take this up, then we can certainly, continue with it by putting it in here and saying with that statement, that leaves it open to us to do it in 2022, 2023, if those circumstances change.
We'll also include it on the thing you want Marnie and I to work on.
Yeah, okay.
Right, it's part of the electrification.
Yeah. Okay, so if we continue on down, it says path off fossil gas. We'll change those words. I'll do a search and change. Here's the text on the fossil gas inventory, natural gas inventory. This is what we drafted. I just wanted to get people's sense of this, because there's a strong recommendation. CPC recommends urgent steps by the city to contract this analysis to actually, do it. Is everybody comfortable with this? Maybe I should say, is anybody uncomfortable with it? Speak up, because I can't see
No,
everybody.
I think it's fine. It's good.
Okay.
One thing I'll just mention, this is down the road. The franchise agreement doesn't come up until 2025, but it's possible that in that franchise agreement, there could be some increases in fees that would help pay for some of the low income transition off of fossil gas.
Nice. That's good. I'll take this as an opportunity, because since Tanya, I think Tanya is still with us. She had to step away for a second, but I see maybe she could give us a sign if she's still with us. Yes, she is. Tanya, I raised with Joe today, because I couldn't help myself, the levelization of the franchise fees that was in last year's budget has not come back as far as I've seen. Last year's budget said that the franchise fees are all going to be levelized. We're going to reduce the franchise fee on the electricity to electric service from 10% to 7.5%. We're going to raise it on gas from 7% to 7.5%. And there were a couple of other small changes as well, but basically it was going to make this franchise fees. He didn't know anything. He said he didn't know anything about it. I'm going to send him a note following up on it. But what Andra just said is an excellent idea, that if we raise it by 0.5 percentage point, that would be nice to go ahead and put that into a protected fund, for this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been so much happening with so much turnover that didn't surprise me at all that he's not aware of that. And
No.
So yeah, I think we should follow up with him and see, because I think within the city's structure, we need to find some pockets of money to work with.
Yeah. I also raised with him the issue of the loan, the USDA loan. It still
Yes.
is not.
So we are not. Is Stu still tracking that?
Stu has said that he's reached out and is not getting responses anymore. That's the last time I talked with him about that, which is about a week ago. And I've been interacting directly with Sabrina about it 3 weeks ago. And then she thought it would be done within 2 weeks. And then today, we've talked about it again, and she needs some information. I think they're just so hobbled with people not able to put together the information. And what I gave a pretty impassioned plea that we can't miss another federal funding cycle because we can't get the numbers together that the USDA had asked for 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
So I wasn't aware that they were still waiting on anything from us.
They are, but we presented something. What I understand from Stu is that we submitted the proposal last June or July, I think, which is already late. And then a few months ago, 3 months ago, and Stu wasn't specific, he got a request for the USDA for some additional financial information and forwarded that over to the finance department. And Mary knows about this as well because she's been trying to dig it up for us. It was on Allison's desk. Stu told me that he wrote emails to Allison, I think to everybody, to Joe, to Sabrina, everybody. And Sabrina told me that she now seems to have some of the information, but maybe not all of it. And she's trying to make sense of what it is that USDA is asking for, because it's not in a format that's easy for her to disentangle. Mary, do you have more information?
Well, it's just the way I understand it is that it was looking for forecasts and analysis information that had to come from finance. And so I talked to Cindy Hanks, who pretty much is second in command for finance, and she didn't know anything about it. So I said that it's been sitting on a director's desk, and then I gave it to Sabrina, and Sabrina was supposed to reach out to Cindy. So that's all I know. So I'll check with her again, because I'm going to check with her on the other thing, and I'll see if she's heard anything about it, or if she could push a little bit. It's just financial information is all they need. So
yeah, so Sabrina initially told me that it was just the CAFR, and then she said, no, it's actually 10 years financing projections. And I said, well, that 10 years financing projections is not for the city. It's got to be for the electric fund, because this is a loan, this is the electric fund. So I don't know. The city needs to figure it out, I suppose. I haven't seen the specific request.
So when was the last time that anyone checked in with Sabrina about it?
Today.
Okay. And she said that she had gotten some of the information.
No, she said she did not get it. She did not say she got any information. She's aware of it. She's working on it. She didn't know. She said something about getting some help with somebody to do the projections.
Okay.
So yeah, so I talked to her today, Tanya, and she knew that we were going to have a CPC meeting today. So if you wanted to follow up and say that you heard about it in the CPC meeting, this is we both Marnie and I were talking about this as one of the key pieces for helping low-income residents of Ashland get access to the kinds of weatherization and HVAC improvements, heating and air conditioning improvements that we need. They need to lower their costs and to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and make them more resilient to smoke and everything that we're talking about. It's so fundamental. It's kind of unbelievable that we can't get this done. I also explained to them that it would not be the city managing it. The idea was being designed so that it could be, we could contract a project manager to do it. They didn't have any of the details, not surprisingly, because they're just overloaded with other things. Okay, sorry, I got us sidetracked here. And so we're okay with urgent steps on that. Thanks, Andra, for bringing that forward. CPC will continue collaborating with local community groups like Streets for Everyone that aim to build community support for changes in the transportation system. Is everybody okay with that? Is anybody not okay? I shouldn't ask positive, I should ask negative because I can't hear you if you don't say no.
Bob, I just have a comment. Do we know when the TSP will start getting its update, or?
You're the tracker, you're the master tracker. Ray.
Well, I just haven't heard anything, No,
if you haven't heard
maybe
it,
I need to talk to Linda Peterson. Is that it? On the transportation committee?
Yeah, I think it's, they're certainly tracking it, or Scott, but yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything, but
I know they were waiting for some ODOT funding and I just hadn't heard. Okay, let me try to contact her.
So here's the electric master plan in yellow, saying why we plan to pursue it, where it's not possible due to staff constraints in the electric department. Recent interaction suggests that work will get underway soon, and that will accompany this and support this work during this year work plan. Is that okay with everybody? And also put in there, the CPC will accompany Ashland Electric and Public Works staff in planning for 1 megawatt solar system that supports resilience of city operations. Tanya, we had a conversation about this last time. I think you weren't, maybe it was after you left the meeting last time, or maybe you weren't in the last meeting. You weren't in the last meeting because you were in Idaho. We wondered whether this is something that really needs work from us at this point, from the CPC per se. It's really something that now is in the hands of the Public Works and Electric Department to do, especially if they've submitted a proposal for state funding. So in the interest of trying to slim our work program for things that really need our attention and that we have the capacity to do, we were wondering whether we should drop that from the
I think it might make sense to see what they proposed and see if they are using up that 1 megawatt slot. I think that they are, but they also might be doing multiple smaller projects on the same site under 200 kilowatt. So we should find out a little bit more details. I'd set it aside for now, but let's find out more details about what it went into the grant proposal.
Okay. And you say you'd set it aside for now, or you think we should just leave it in for now?
I mean, I would just, I don't think anybody should do any work on it until we find out what was in the proposal.
Okay. And the proposal was going to be submitted by Scott. It was not going to be submitted by Tom. He was going to coordinate with Tom, I believe. But it's Public Works proposal.
Yeah, I believe it was. I think it's Scott Fleury was the one who was putting it forward.
Right. Okay. Recruitment. I've got a reference to the consolidation. Kind of a bland statement. Any comments on that statement in yellow? And then the updated vulnerability assessment. This is something, Tanya, that Brian and I talked about a few weeks back, that we didn't get to start that. And that was going to be you when you were on the commission. Now you're a council liaison. You say you can't be responsible for actually doing it, but we feel like we need your expertise. And Brian has said that he would be willing to learn about it, but he needs to do, there's a bit of jumping up the learning curve. I had volunteered to work with you last year, but I'm not going to be able to do that this year. And I don't, so I think we think it's, well, let's just ask the question. Do we think this should stay in the work plan, or is this something that has to drop because we don't have the capacity with the same statements we have elsewhere?
I think you should, because this commission is being reorganized, I would not drop things in the interest of paring down until you see who is on the commission in September. And then I maybe go back through and do the same process and see where the expertise and interest lies.
That's good advice. Okay. Does that seem good to everybody? Okay, then we have the appendix, which is just a summary of everything. And I put in yellow here, complete a fossil gas inventory, because that's what we're saying should be done. And then the appendix 2 formal planning tracking sheet. I have to ask Ray if you could just provide me, a new formal. I think this is an older one.
I think you had.
Oh, this is from July 2021. Did you give me one? I can use the one that you have from today.
Yeah.
I can figure that out. I'm going to do some formatting. Okay, so this is the main document that we prepared, but we have 2 more documents. One is the look ahead, which is supposed to reflect the decisions here, and the other one is a report card from 2021, 2022. Do people still have the appetite to look at those? We've still got some time. And let me stop sharing for a second. Can we see everybody? Yeah, everybody's okay? Does everybody need to stand up and do some jumping jacks or something? Let's see if I can. Let's see. So then we have the look ahead. I think we can do fairly quickly because that really is the same as this. Really, the intention was to follow it exactly. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so you should be able to see that now. We don't have a tentative meeting date. I don't know that we need to this point. Or maybe maybe I could ask everybody. Yeah, let me do that. As we go through this, I don't think we need it for this meeting now, but if after this meeting and within the next week, let's say, so today is the 14th, if by July 21st, everybody can give me a tentative meeting date by which something should be provided over in the far right column over here. Or if it's something that's ongoing, just say ongoing, just so that I can go ahead and incorporate that. Is that okay for everybody?
That doesn't necessarily apply to every item, does it?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay.
So that's, well, for tracking, for example, just say ongoing. That would be ongoing. I can. That's pretty obvious. I can do that. But for example, costing, the third item down, costing us in greenhouse gas offsets for 2030. This is Caitlin and Rick. If you could, come up with a tentative date for that. And same thing, Brian, this state climate policy and municipal climate policy, that's ongoing. You don't have to say that. The climate note is Barth Millett. So some sense of the date on that. Now we're talking, last time we talked about getting rid of the comprehensive plan. So that I put in the strikeout on this time. It's no longer in the work plan from last time. So next time we see this, I'll just take out the strikeouts. But I just wanted to give people another opportunity to comment on if they felt they needed to. Clean buildings, Tanya, we're letting you off the hook from letting us know when education would be productive. I think we can handle it. Home energy scores, building code. We don't have anybody that's assigned to that, but I guess that's really Brian. Brian, you're handling that with what you're doing state level monitoring. Is that fair?
Okay. I don't know anything about building codes, but
no, but it's what you reported on today with Pam when she talked about the task force. That's in lieu of the reach codes.
okay.
So if you just keep track of that, it's such a huge important advance. It'd be nice to know when that happens. So is it okay if I put your name by it, Brian?
Yeah.
It's really within that same monitoring state changes.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it should be state building codes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, that would.
Okay. Okay. Look at that. I can change it. Okay. I'll remove the strikeouts from solar reserve EV charging. I'll figure out. I'll make this parallel to what's in the work plan, but and I'll put down question. I'll keep the question mark, and I'll have a little note there that the text that we talked about, pending staff or commission membership. Path off natural gas we've talked about. Rick, you're off the hook with infrastructure procurement, following up with the city manager. Gary wrote me an email saying that he was not going to attend this meeting, and he said, why did we decide to take off the urban land use and transportation implementation plan? And I wrote back to him saying I thought that's what he intended, and he never responded. So does anybody know?
Well, I can confirm that he said that before. So I'm now confused why he was wondering.
Right. Yeah, it was a bit of a petulant note saying, why did we decide to take it off? I said, we didn't decide anything. We thought it was yours. So, okay.
So it's probably on the report card still, right?
Yeah, it's on the report card. So
Yeah.
I think there's really nothing else here. What I've done, by the way, on this report card, I've changed the format slightly. You can see the slightly different shading here for the things that are projects rather than initiatives. Everything else is matching to the initiatives. So we've got 5 initiatives.
The one that,
right?
I'm sorry, on that yellow where it says the residential GHG reduction, document personal experience, do you want to say that as done?
Done. Right. I'll say it's done. So we'll take it off the, I'll take it off of this. It'll be,
Or
put
you
it
can
in the
just,
report.
you can leave it there, but just put done in big letters.
Done.
No, just
I'll
kidding.
do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Exactly.
And, you know, I've reached out to Eugene. I actually emailed them to get more information about their franchise agreement, and I have not heard anything. And there doesn't seem to be anything new on their work with the Northwest Natural Gas. So, but I emailed a document that's a draft franchise agreement. I don't know, it was a draft that I found. Emailed that to Rick, and we'll follow up on that.
It's great.
You'd put it in big letters. Thank you, Bob.
With an exclamation point.
Well,
Okay, let me go to the report card. And see if I can find it. There it is. Oops. Okay, here's our report card. 5 initiatives. So deferred, wait, and the notes are waiting for staff, climate analyst. Okay, ongoing, this is what we've got. So here I'll put prepare a land use planning proposal for EV infrastructure. I'll come up with some wording on that that says that initial discussions, further work pending, availability of staff.
So Bob, on that, is there anyone in the planning department, any particular person that one would talk to about that?
The only person, it seems to me that's Brandon Goldman, like Mr. knows everything about
Brandon,
planning.
sure.
Is that right, Tanya? Or I think that'd be the right person.
Because I
Yeah, I think so.
I would be willing to go and like just talk with him and say kind of where are things and what is possible in terms of planning codes for EV infrastructure. I mean, I'd be willing to go and like I said, just an investigatory sort of conversation. I'm not sure that I could add much expertise on that, but I'd be willing to go and just get information from him.
Okay, I think that'd be good. I think it would be good to first reach out to Stu.
Stu, okay.
Stu, because that particular one is something that Stu continues to be very focused on.
Okay.
I think this is one of his priorities for the 20% of his time that he's spending with the city of Ashland. So,
okay.
But I don't know. I'm not sure about land use planning necessarily. We're just putting in, EV infrastructure. Okay, ongoing. So I did say here's what I said. Gary abandoned this when the LCDC decision came down on the integrated urban land use. That's what I thought had happened. I don't know. We'll figure it out and fix it, whatever it was.
So we have to go change the natural gas here as well, right?
Yeah, well, I'll change it. I'll do all that.
Yep.
Assist mayor and commissioner recruitment. 3 new commissioners appointed. 1 student application submitted. That was quite good. Okay,
So that's all on hold then, right? Yep.
that's on hold. All that's on hold. Well, that piece of it is on hold. The gas-powered lawn and garden equipment emissions reduction is underway, and Caitlin and Gary are still working on that. Climate change adaptation roadmap we're delayed, and I'll put a note there. All right, I think that's it for the report card. Is it? If anyone has suggestions, specific suggestions on how you'd like me to, because my suggestion was we report our report card to the city council when we do the rest of the presentation. The idea being that we've made some progress, but limited progress for a number of reasons. All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
So are you going to color any of those to highlight, or just keep it black and white?
I don't know. What do you suggest? Should we highlight with different codes, deferred, ongoing?
Yeah, I would say maybe just, one column in there, you've got a color code. So you kind of see, yep, these things were done. These things are on hold because of city staff or commissioners, and these things are ongoing.
So maybe the code would be anything that's ongoing would be green. Anything that's deferred would be
Yellow.
yellow. We don't have anything that's underway. I don't know if that's, yeah, underway should be green as well. Pending should be yellow. Maybe deferred should be red.
Yeah. If we,
Delayed is yellow, deferred is red. Okay. All right.
and then obviously as things fill in and we get realigned, and if we get more staff and whatever, then the color can change.
Right. All right, great. Any other thoughts on this? This was we went through pretty well. It was a little less than 60 minutes. So it's a lot of material and a lot of, I don't know. Really,
No, well,
hard to go
thanks
through.
thanks for all your work, Bob, putting
Right.
working with what Rick had and updating it.
Yeah. Thanks
with
to you
input
too.
from us. Yep.
So that's I do want to say something that I forgot to say at the outset about the housing production strategy. Let me see if I can back to my notes that I meant to tell you about. So remember, one of the things that is on the work program for last year and also this year is the Housing Production Strategy Advisory Committee, and I've replaced Chris as the CPC representative on that committee. We had our third meeting this past Monday, and we've made some more progress. It's really going to be a 8 months process, and really the consultants are winnowing down a list of things that were identified in the last year's needs assessment or the head strategy annex, and now they're trying to get into more specificity on specific actions and grouping them into 4 initiatives having to do with new housing, having to do with current existing housing, making housing more affordable. So my input in this group has been relentlessly focusing on electrification, on reducing energy efficiency, building envelope, making that available, reducing people's expenses on monthly expenses on utilities because you've got more efficient homes, all of those kinds of things. Any opportunity, I say something about that. And I think the group has really kind of latched on to that as well as one of the things that needs to be taken into account, because low-income housing is often saddled with high utility costs as well, because it's not well insulated, it has inefficient equipment. In as much as they're talking about strategies that involve upgrading existing housing stock, I think that will be part of the strategy. And also in building new buildings, the possibility of doing that. We've also talked including about manufactured home options as well, and trying to do that in a way that is energy efficient. There was there's a lot of discussion about different things, including different financing methods, but I don't think that we need to go into all the details here. But that's really been my approach. I don't know if anyone has some additional thoughts about things that I should be emphasizing that maybe falls outside of that when it comes to housing production strategy. This is basically making sure that we've got enough housing in Ashland and of all types for all income strata. Focused mostly on, not mostly on low income, but there's different strata which is under 50% of median income, 50 to 80%, 80 to 120% median income, and what the housing costs could be in order to be under the cost burden level. About a third of Ashland's renters and a third of Ashland's homeowners are cost burden for housing.
Well, you might have implied this, but I didn't explicitly hear, or I missed sealing and filtration.
I've talked about that with them too. Yes, yeah. I did say this. I was using a shorthand here. I think weatherization and building envelope. Yes, I've talked about that.
And I guess Gary would input that it's along the transportation corridors.
Right. I haven't said something specifically about transportation corridors. That's a good point. But that is already reflected in some of the languages there.
Yeah.
But I'll pay attention to that more. Okay. It's time for a wrap up. Is there anything? I think we've got, so Caitlin, who I think is now gone, she's gone, was going to send me some text, and Andra is going to send me some text. And everybody else is going to, by next week, look at that, look ahead and give me dates if there are any dates that are relevant for that. Otherwise, just say ongoing or underway. Anything else for the action items? If there are other things that you want on the agenda for next month, let me know. I will, as soon as I get something, if I get something, or Mary, I suppose we'll get it on the resolution for the commissions. We'll share that. We may, Joe had suggested we could even call an emergency meeting, and I had to laugh.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to get a non-emergency meeting.
Bob, I guess I got one to follow up with Scott on what he's going to present in August 1st on the natural gas reduction for city.
Right. Well, and you may as well ask him as well about the transportation system plan, since
okay,
because that's his responsibility as well.
Great.
Right. Okay.
I have an unrelated question. Tanya, when Ashland has elections in the first part of November, do the people that win elections, do they immediately take office, or does that happen in January?
It happens in January. So the existing terms go through the end of December, and then the new term starts for the new elected people on January 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Great. Thanks, everyone.